Okay, Kate.
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So we're here today to talk a bit about CELTA, and because you're one of the tutors for our course, perhaps you could start by telling me about your CELTA experience. When did you first do your CELTA?
Well, I did my CELTA, I think I did it in 2006, so that would have been 12 years ago.
Okay.
And I didn't have much experience. I was still in my second or third year at university, and I came to work with the International House, and that was one of the requirements of the school, that I do the CELTA course. So yeah, it was extremely challenging. It was really interesting, and I think because I didn't have that much experience, I really felt like I was learning a lot every day, so I really enjoyed it. It was very tough, but it was great.
Okay. And there are so many different technical qualifications now, and there seem to be more all the time. There's Trinity, there are lots of online qualifications. What do you think makes CELTA different and special compared to other qualifications?
Well, CELTA is sort of the original or the oldest one, and it's based on an International House course developed by IH a long time ago, I don't quite know when. I find that CELTA is good because it's strictly monitored. All the tutors have to do a number of standardization tasks every year, and it's assessed externally by somebody coming to see the course and to look at the participants. So in terms of validity of the results, it's much better than a lot of courses. And obviously the face-to-face component and the teaching practice component is very important. Say if you're doing an online course, which there are a lot of being offered at the moment, you don't get to actually be observed while teaching, so that's a bit of a shame. So yeah.
So one of the things you're saying is the external assessment side is really important, that we bring in somebody who's not related to the course from outside, who checks your marking as well as the students, the candidates' progress. So it's much fairer perhaps in that way, and therefore is perhaps more recognised.
Yeah, and it's not a person who doesn't do CELTAs him or herself, so an external assessor is also a CELTA tutor, so you also get to share experience, to discuss and learn how things are done in other centres. So for the tutors of the course, this isn't just a way in which they get assessed or in which they're checked, but they also learn from that other person's experience to improve the course that they are running.
Okay. How many courses have you been a tutor on now?
That's a very good question. I think about 6. And the one where I got trained on, so 6
so
or 7
you've been
courses.
Involved for the past 4 summers, I think,
Yes,
with us,
yeah.
doing the courses. What do you think surprises the participants most during the first week?
Well, during the interview, we always tell the participants that it is going to be a lot of work, and you're going to be quite stressed, and you're going to be working a lot from home, and then they don't quite believe us. And then by the end of week 1, people start approaching the tutor saying, you actually didn't lie, it's true, it is a lot of work, we do have to work a lot. So I think that still, even though you get the warning, it still comes as a surprise to you as a participant.
Okay. We see CELTA often as a sort of initial qualification, but we also get candidates who have lots of experience and then are finding it difficult to get jobs in certain locations, or the standards have changed in the country where they're working and they need to get their CELTA. What can the course offer to candidates who have lots of experience, that have lots of knowledge, as opposed to people straight out of university?
Well, the CELTA course is very much hands-on, so you get to do things in the classroom as you discuss them during your input sessions, and it's a way of just maybe changing some of your teaching beliefs, acquiring some new methods. And the CELTA is about a certain teaching method, so if you're not used to working within this framework, you do learn a lot. And actually, experienced candidates sometimes find it a little bit more challenging than the inexperienced ones, because they have to change their mindset, they have to break some habits that they already have, and they have to acquire new ones, and that is quite a challenge. It's quite interesting as well, I think.
So for teachers that perhaps have been teaching in state schools or schools with a different methodology, such as Montessori, you have to accept the CELTA kind of ethos as well as,
exactly.
just do the course. It's not just a piece of paper. Is it possible for completely novice candidates to get higher grades, to get B, A's and B's during the course?
Yes, absolutely. I may have mentioned it before that for an inexperienced candidate, it might even be easier to embrace the CELTA methodology, because they don't have to break the habits that they already have. So as long as you listen to your tutors and you take in their comments and their feedback to your teaching practice, and if you sort of play along, if you participate in the sessions, and if you observe your peers with attention, then you're quite likely to do well on the course, and it's not impossible for a novice candidate to get a good grade.
And I think we actually had some, last time we did the course, we had some really good novice candidates who got really good marks.
Yes, we did. Yeah, some very young candidates as well. One had just finished school and went straight into teaching and did very well on the course.
So it's more about your kind of effort and attitude than what you know before the course.
Yes, and it's very much about being open to feedback and accepting all feedback and being ready to change and being ready to try new things.
So when you give the training teachers their feedback, they get a list of things that were that you liked during the lesson and things that need to improve. What do you want the candidates to do with this need to improve section? What are you hoping is going to change for the next time? How do you expect them to approach this part?
Well, we want them to, first of all, pay attention during other trainees' lessons, when observing those lessons, to see how they do these things, how they address the issues that the candidate has. And then obviously try things out and experiment, and if something is not quite working out, then you try again, and then you try again, and you won't succeed straight away, not necessarily, but as long as we as students see that you're trying and you're sort of doing your best to get things done, it's fine. And we're very happy about candidates sort of making progress. The CELTA course is more about people making progress than just ticking the boxes. So as long as we see the progress, you're fine.
Okay. So it's better for the candidate, for example, in lesson 1 to have one list of areas to work on, and in lesson 2 to have a different list of areas to work on, because that shows that they've addressed some of the issues you asked them to the first time, and now you can move on and discuss other areas.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen, because there are certain things that are very difficult to turn into a habit. Things like not talking too much in the classroom, things like giving adequate feedback to students, to learners. So some things will repeat from feedback to feedback, and then maybe even in your final lesson you will still have that same area that you need to work on. But as long as you're making progress within that area, it's fine. And it really depends on the candidates. Some are capable of taking things in straight away, and then they make new mistakes. Some identify 1 or 2 areas which they need to consistently work on, and that sort of stays with them for a while.
And of course different types of lessons mean that different problems come up and teaching different levels.
Yes.
So about different levels, on the CELTA course, it's a requirement that the trainee teachers teach at 2 different levels, and that these should be 2 levels apart.
Yes.
So normally we have elementary students and intermediate students, but it's just as possible, I think, to have pre-intermediate and upper intermediate.
Yes, yeah.
Why is it important to have these two different levels?
Well, because the way you deal with language, for example, is very different. With elementary learners, you will be doing more drilling, you will be doing more repetition, you will be introducing vocabulary in a certain way. And then when you move on to intermediate or upper intermediate students, you have to dig much deeper. So language analysis is very different at an elementary and at an intermediate level, for example. And then, of course, teacher talking time, the way you grade your language will be very different. And depending on what your teaching background is, you may find teaching an elementary group more or less challenging than the intermediate group, for example.
So when the candidates arrive, we divide them into two groups,
Yeah.
and this is their group for the whole of the course.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the groups will start with the lower level class, one of the groups with the higher level
Yeah.
class. Some candidates might feel that they're at a disadvantage, for example, having the low level class first, particularly if they don't know the local language. Is there a preference, do you think, for starting with the lower or starting with the higher group?
No, not really. I mean, both groups present different challenges, so you may feel that you're at a disadvantage if you're starting with an elementary group, but then once you've moved to the intermediate group, you will see how starting with an elementary one has helped you develop certain techniques, or on the contrary, you will see that things you can do with an elementary group do not really work with an intermediate one. So it's hard to say. I think it's a matter of experience. Say teachers who have teaching experience, they will of course prefer to start with a group which they have worked with a level that they've worked with before. But again, not necessarily that is a good thing to do. So it doesn't really make any difference.
Okay. And then the changeover can be difficult either way, either going up or going down. What are the sort of major pitfalls for candidates during the course, do you think? Where do candidates sometimes slip up or end up not getting the grade that perhaps they could have got?
Well, I think one of the very important things is organizing your own time and trying to keep up with the deadlines, trying to keep up with the tasks, with things you need to submit, because it is a lot of work, and if you don't meet the deadlines, things sort of start piling up. And then you find yourself, in week 3 where you have to change over to teach a new group, which is an extra challenge, with a couple of things that you haven't done or you haven't submitted, and then it's easy to get too stressed, to burn out even. So it's important to pace yourself and to do things as they come, to work with the tasks.
How do you help candidates who might be struggling towards the end of the course? Perhaps they failed a lesson or two, perhaps they had to resubmit some assignments. What extra help can we offer them?
Yeah, well, first of all, failing a lesson or two is not a big deal, especially at the beginning of the course, and it's a learning curve, and I always tell the candidates that it's actually not a bad thing, because it really shows you where you're lacking and what you need to work on. So this is fine, and candidates get quite a bit of one-to-one time with the tutors, because they have tutorials. They have a tutorial towards the end of week 2 of the course, and then if something is missing, they will get another tutorial by the end of week 3. So we talk about things, we talk with the candidates about their progress, and there's a lot of self-assessment as well. So we get the candidates to look at the progress they've made, indicate the areas of weakness and areas of strength, and work with what they have at each certain stage of the course.
Sometimes when you look at jobs in ELT, we'll ask for CELTA A and B applicants only. Is there a big difference between getting a pass and getting an A or a B, do you think?
Well, most of the candidates will get a pass, and a pass is fine because it shows that you have made sufficient progress, you're comfortable with the method, with the approach, and the core techniques are there. I think it only really matters when you are first year inexperienced teacher just off the CELTA and then having it pass B or pass A can indicate that you're a quick learner, really, that's all it shows, more or less. Or that you have the potential to develop quickly and on your own. You don't need that much help from the school. So, to me, it doesn't really make that much difference. And I have worked in recruitment as well, and it's really the tutors' feedback and what they write about you that makes a difference, and also how you present yourself during the interview and how you can talk about your profession and language.
So a good report from your CELTA tutors is just as, or in some cases more important than which of the past grades you actually got.
Yeah. A report is much more important.
Okay. After the CELTA course, do we help people with, recruitment during the course? What can they expect to do after the course? How much easier will it be for them to find work after taking it?
Yeah, well, in week 4 of the course, we always do a session on recruitment, on job interviews, so we give the trainees some ideas about where they can look for a job, how to prepare for an interview, what to expect from sort of a standard language school contract. We talk about lots of different things like dress code and code of conduct and things like that. And also towards end of week 3, week 4, quite a lot of candidates start looking for jobs and some start applying for jobs. And then of course if they ask, can you look at this job ad and tell me if it looks legit or not, we will always offer them support and help. A lot of former CELTA candidates, they email us asking for, some sort of feedback or to write a letter of recommendation. But then again, CELTA report actually serves as that.
Yeah.
They can easily submit it, and if the school wants to know more about them, they can always contact us directly and ask about the candidate.
And of course, once somebody's taken CELTA, that opens up the whole of International House world to them, which has its own site. And perhaps one of the good things about doing your CELTA at IH means that it's very easy to, find good candidates' work through word of mouth.
Yes.
So you kind of halfway through the door already.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Why should people take the course here with us in Riga?
Well, it is a very good school, and it has been here in Latvia. It has existed since when? You know better than I do.
So it's been here as a school since 1993 and as an IH school since 2003.
Yeah. The school teaches both adult students and children. So teachers who work here are quite experienced, and observing those teachers as part of the course is in itself a very useful experience. And then, I think what is quite important is that the tutors on the course, myself and the main course tutor, Alistair, we have worked together on 5 or 6 courses, so we know exactly how we work, and we work well together, so we know each other, we know the course program, we know what kind of sessions we do. So it runs quite smoothly in this sense, that we don't need to get used to each other and get used to our teaching style, so that's a benefit. And then Riga, I find, is a very good place to be when you're doing the course. It's quite small, so it takes away the stress of having to commute, being in noisy streets and being stressed, being late to class because you're stuck somewhere in a traffic jam. In summer especially, the weather is really nice, the climate is quite mild, so again, it's not too hot, but it's not too cold either. And it's very laid back, and it's a nice city, it's nice to be in, so if you want to go out and have a drink with your course mate on a Friday night, you can also do that easily, and it's nice. It's easy to find a nice bar or cafe to go to. And we do encourage our trainees to go out together as a group to get to know each other, because this helps a lot. And usually groups that become friendly and who help and support each other, they do better as a whole group than groups that don't really get along. So we do encourage that as well.
Yes, and one of the perhaps unusual things about CELTA is that you watch the other members of your group teaching as well. And some people might think on the surface that this is a waste of their time, because they could be planning their lessons or writing their assignments rather than watching other inexperienced teachers teaching lessons. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say that this is one of the most important things on the course, because if you think about it, you personally only get to teach 8 or 9 lessons in total. But then when you're watching the other teachers teach, you're observing many, many more lessons. And because you know the group, you get to know your students better. You see what mistakes your peers make and what they do well. So you learn a lot from observing the others, and then you don't just observe things. After each teaching session, teaching practice session, there is a feedback session during which you can discuss all of your questions and concerns, and you can support your peers, you can get support from them, or you can ask questions and raise issues that came up during the lesson. So it is part of the learning experience, and it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than from just your own ones. So it is very much encouraged to pay a lot of attention during other trainees teaching practice, and write things down and ask questions, and
Okay. What about the guinea pig students, the people who come for lessons? How do we find them? How do they approach the course? How do they feel about being taught by novice teachers, this sort of team teaching thing where sort of they're not always the focus of the lesson?
Well, they always know what they're signing up for, and they choose this kind of experience usually because if the course is run in summer, then they can make the time, and people like doing intensive courses, so they're there for a whole month studying English 5 days a week, and this helps them as well to boost their confidence and make progress. And well, on our courses I usually talk to the guinea pigs before we start the course, and I tell them about their tutors, and I tell them what is going to happen, what kind of workload the tutors have, and what kind of support they get from us experienced teachers. So I think it's really nice because the guinea pigs, the TP students, they become very, very supportive of the teachers. And we had one group who would give a round of applause to each and every teacher after the teaching practice. So it's nice. They're very helpful, they're supportive, and it's nice to see them learn from day to day. And they're usually very grateful at the end of the course to the teachers.
Yes, and sometimes, I've heard from some of your CPs after lessons that they've said, I made this mistake, but the students covered for me.
Yes.
So the students are very much on your side.
Yes,
which is important.
I actually had a couple of TP students come up to me after a class that didn't quite go very well and tell me, be nice to this candidate, he was doing his best. And so they are on the trainees side, very much so. And I think one other benefit and something that they do like about the CELTA courses is that they get to learn from 5, 6 different people, no, actually more, 10 different people. So they listen to 10 different accents, they experience 10 different teaching styles, and they meet 10 different teachers. And they really like it. It helps them boost their confidence as well.
And I think I'm right in saying that we have some kind of repeat offenders, as it were. We have some guinea pigs who come back year after year. to join the groups.
We have very experienced guinea pigs on our courses.
Okay, and finally to finish, why did you become a tutor for the CELTA courses?
Well, this takes us back to the time when I did my CELTA course, and I had wonderful tutors on my course. It was Bruce Bax, who was at the time Director of Studies at International House, and it was Tim Bowen, who you may have heard of. He has written a number of books on teaching pronunciation and other books. And I was really inspired by both their examples, and that's when I actually decided that one day, when I know enough, I will become a CELTA tutor. So after a number of years, when I gained the experience and I did my Delta, I decided it was the time to become a tutor. And I do really like working with teachers and training teachers. I think I learn from all of them as well as they learn from me. So it's a very rewarding experience. Yeah.
Okay, Kate, thank you very much.
Thank you.